and he felt like his country had betrayed him. But even more than he disliked his country for doing that, he hated Rome, and he looked at Rome as like a blood enemy, you know? They are your enemy forever, and he pounded that into Hannibal. You know, Hannibal was raised to believe that, you know what, Rome is our natural enemy, and we hate them with every ounce of our being, etc., etc., etc. Well, Hamilcar got fed up with Carthage after the First Punic War, and because he wanted to start a war again, he wanted to go back. He still thought he could beat Rome, and Carthage was like, no. No, and so Hamilcar was like, fine, I'm going to go find a real army, and I'll continue the fight myself. So he went to Spain, which at the time, Spain was just a whole bunch of barbarians, the Visigoths and a whole bunch of other people who weren't really unified. They were just their own little tribal countries and armies, and Hamilcar went there, and basically Spain was considered barbaric, and Hamilcar went there and tamed them. He fought and conquered pretty much all of the barbarian tribes in Spain, and kind of condensed them into an army. And while the army was not the most disciplined army in the world, they were incredibly experienced because they were all barbarians that had spent their entire life fighting. So basically, Hamilcar gathered this army by conquering them of really experienced and trained barbarians. And they didn't have anywhere near the discipline that the Roman army had, but what they lacked in discipline, they made up for in sheer ferocity and experience. And they were a really strong army. And the plan was for Hamilcar to take this army and go destroy Rome. It was always about Rome. It was Rome, 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 Rome. And Hamilcar died before he could do this, and his son Hannibal took over. What's my status right now? Oh, cool. I'm about to level up again. I think I'm only going to get to level 45. But, so his son Hannibal took over with the same aspirations that his father had. He wanted to kill Rome. And he took this army and he continued condensing it and getting it ready and preparing and waiting for an opportunity to attack Rome. And that opportunity came when Rome basically provided him the opportunity, and we're not quite sure. We think that Rome saw what Hannibal was doing in Spain and how he had collected this massive army in Spain, and they were wary about his power and afraid that he was going to try and use it against Rome. So Rome all of a sudden gained an interest in Spain. And they landed on Spain, and they said, hey, we're going to take some Spain for ourselves. And Hannibal was like, no, you're not. And they're like, yeah, you know what? According to our peace treaty between Carthage and Rome, you have to let us do this or that. And Hannibal basically, I don't remember the exact details of it, but Hannibal used this as an excuse to start the Second Punic War. He basically claimed that Rome attacked them. Which, pretty much that's the way it always worked in the ancient world, and not even in this not-so-ancient world. No country ever wanted to look like they were at fault. They always tried to make it look like this was a just war, even when you're blatantly invading another country. No, you're invading that country because that country wronged you somehow. They attacked your army, or they... I'm just running around until someone heals me. They attacked your army, or they attacked your honor or something. Just kill him, guys. Come on. Oh, gosh. He backed up. No! He beat me. I could have probably healed or something. Didn't think about that. And so Hannibal was no different, and Rome was no different too. They made it look like Hannibal attacked. So what did Hannibal do? Well, you kind of have to know your geography a little bit for this, but Rome was always hard to invade because they were Italy is naturally fortified. You have the sea on three sides because Italy is a peninsula, and so it's difficult because you have to do an amphibious invasion, which is never easy to do. And to their north, they are protected by the Alps, which are incredibly tall mountains. So if you're an army and you want to invade Italy or Rome, you have to either attack by sea or climb over the Alps, which no one had done before. Rome considered the Alps to be an impenetrable barrier. They did not think an army was capable of crossing the Alps. So they never even considered that an army would come from that direction. Whenever they considered someone would attack them, they always assumed it would be by sea. Because if you're not going over the Alps, the only option you have is by boat. And so that's exactly what they did. They prepared for a sea invasion. And Hannibal played to that strength. He took his army of barbarians and he crossed the Alps. And he showed that it wasn't impossible to cross the Alps. It was just incredibly difficult. And you're going to lose a lot of people. He lost, I think, God, maybe a third or more of his army crossing the Alps due to freezing, frostbite, starvation. Most of his elephants, he started off with a crap load of elephants and only had like 10 or less by the time he got across the Alps. The elephants were not really a big factor during his invasion in Rome. He was able to supplement his numbers on the other side of the Alps, or right before the Alps, with the Goths, who were a Germanic tribe of barbarians who he promised riches and fame and all, etc., etc. So he had them, but he never really trusted them. He didn't trust them like he trusted his core army of barbarians, mercenaries, I guess you would say. Basically he crossed the Alps, and he paid a heavy price for it, but it worked because he caught Rome completely by surprise. Rome did not see it coming at all, and Rome continued to underestimate him. They saw that there was an army there, and they thought it couldn't be that strong or that big, so they sent one army to go fight him, and basically Hannibal, they kept sending smaller, like a small army, Hannibal kicked his butt. They sent a bigger army, Hannibal kicked his butt. They sent a bigger army, Hannibal kicked his butt. And he kept kicking their butts through brilliant strategies and tactics. Like, he ambushed one. There was, Hannibal would play against Rome's own techniques against them. Like, for example, Rome was afraid of their own power, of one man getting too much power. So every army would have two generals, and generals would alternate which day who's in charge, with the idea being that no one general could have complete control of the army, and thus the chances of them trying to use that army to conquer Rome or something was negated. So I would control the army Tuesday, you would control the army Wednesday, and if I wanted to do something on Wednesday but you were in control, tough luck. And Hannibal would play this against them. He would see, you know, which general was dumber, and he would attack on that day. He would do things like he'd entice them to, like, I don't remember the name of this battle, but there was one battle where he enticed the general on, the dumber general, and the general gave chase, and he gave chase into a very narrow land. There was like hills on their left side, and then a river or a lake on their right side, and they were very enclosed, they were very tight, and they were marching down this road, and the first general didn't want to do it, but he wasn't in charge, so he didn't have a choice. And then Hannibal ambushed them from the hills and literally just attacked their flank before they had a chance to do anything about it, and slaughtered them. I mean, killed them almost to a man. Basically he kept doing things like this. He kept outsmarting Rome and Rome's philosophy was, screw tactics. We don't need tactics. We have such a good army, we can just throw our army at them in larger and larger numbers and win. And it had always worked, because like I told you, their army was better trained, better experienced, better disciplined. All they generally had to do is run at the other army with their fantastic army and win. They didn't need tactics or strategy that much. And of course you needed it against Hannibal, and they took a long time to learn that. They decided eventually to just make a massive army. God, I don't remember the numbers. I think, well, of course, back then it's hard to it's hard to gauge numbers back then because numbers were almost always exaggerated, but it's anywhere from 60,000 to 100,000 soldiers, which is massive for an army back then. Incredibly massive of legionnaires. And Hannibal had an army of, I think, 20 or 30,000, something like that. Not even close to the size Rome had. And Rome's idea was, well, we just have such a massive amount of soldiers, we're just going to annihilate him with sheer numbers. And it had always worked in the past. And, where am I? What's my status right now? 43, huh? I'm going to try and get to level 45, maybe. We can call it quits. So, yeah. Yeah, so they figured the same thing would happen. We'll just send 100,000 troops at Hannibal. And who cares if he's good at tactics? He can't defeat that many. Well, yeah, not so much. And this is like one of the most ingenious battles. Normally, when people talk about battles of the ancient world, this comes up as just ingenious, commanding and brilliant command ability. And I'll put a link, I'll find a video that talks about it and put a link in the description for you guys too, because this is definitely one of those you need to watch to see. But I can kind of describe it for you. Basically, remember I said the Roman legion is like a checkerboard? Well, all they would do is they would advance this checkerboard on the other army's line and wipe them out. They very rarely even cared about flanking maneuvers. That's just was not Rome's style. So here's what Hannibal did. He lined his troops up in a crescent moon formation. Imagine a hump or an arch. Think like Goofy's life bar, that green bar at the top of the screen. That sort of curve. And he lined them up like that. And he was at the front, in the very middle, with his best troops. And he took his cavalry and put them on the sides.